Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Houston Sports Talk back into the video today, and today we're going to be talking about why the Houston Texans are the best team in the AFC. Going into training camp, which for the Texans, some other teams start a little bit later, but since the Texans are going to be playing in the Hall of Fame game, the Texans start training camp on July 17th. Both rookies and veterans report to training camp, and I'm really hyped for this season for the Houston Texans, and I'm really excited for where the way things are going to go this year. And I really, truly saying that I believe the Houston Texans are the best team in the AFC right now. I look at the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think are a great team. They're the reigning champions. They're going to be a great team. I look at a lot of other teams in the AFC as well, like the Baltimore Ravens, the reigning 1 seed of the AFC. The Baltimore Ravens are not the only team in the AFC that are dominant like the Chiefs. You got the Ravens, you got the Chiefs. You have, I think, a team that will be a lot more improved this year. 2 teams that are going to be a lot more healthy, the New York Jets and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Miami Dolphins. This is a stacked conference. I mean, Jacksonville could be better this year. So this is a very stacked conference, but I really like the talent that the Houston Texans have. And honestly, I look at all the teams throughout the AFC, and I believe the Houston Texans have the best offense. Honestly, just in the AFC, I think the best quarterback, of course, it's Patrick Mahomes. As much as I love C.J. Stroud, and I think he could be I think he is very talented right now, and is gonna be 100% better than he was in his rookie season. In my opinion, he's not better than Patrick Mahomes. I'm not that crazy. Patrick Mahomes is a lot better, but I will say C.J. Stroud has a way better supporting cast around him offensively, and maybe you could argue defensively, than Patrick Mahomes does. C.J. Stroud, in my opinion, has the best wide receiver core in football. I think the only wide receiver core you could make an argument with is the Chicago Bears, with them having Keenan Allen, DJ Moore, and Rome Odunze. I think that's really the only argument you can make with the Texans wide receiver core, because they have Nico Collins, a guy who just had over 1,000 receiving yards. I think 1,200 receiving yards this season, was absolutely fantastic. They've added in Stephon Diggs, who is a Pro Bowler and an All-Pro, and another 1,000-yard receiver right there. And they added in Tank Dell, who I believe finished the season with 800 receiving yards and missed the last 3 or 4 games of the season due to a season-ending injury. He's going to be healthy for the season. And then you can even go to their 4th wide receiver in Noah Brown. Noah Brown, who's C.J. Stroud's 4th best receiver in the offense, had 600 receiving yards on the season, and that's the 4th best wide receiver on the team. They have a Pro Bowler running back in Joe Mixon. They have a very good tight end in Dalton Schultz. And look, honestly, I look at the top defenses in the AFC, and outside the New York Jets and the Baltimore Ravens, I think the Houston Texans might have one of the best defenses in the AFC outside of New York and Baltimore. I think the Jets defense, both the Jets and Ravens defense this year, I think are going to be great. And Kansas City's defense is going to be really good too. I'd actually take the Texans defense over Kansas City. I know that Kansas City's defense is pretty elite, but if you look at some of the numbers comparing to last year, the Chiefs had 11 more sacks than the Texans did, but the Texans have now added in Danielle Hunter, who I believe finished the season with 11.5 or 12 sacks, something like that. The Texans had 6 more interceptions. They had more fumble recoveries. They had the same amount of forced fumbles. So the Texans' defense, outside of sacks, was pretty even to the Kansas City Chiefs last year. The only difference compared to the Chiefs' defense was the sacks, which was something the Chiefs had a big lead on to the Texans defensively. But now the Texans have added in Danielle Hunter defensively. So I think this Texans team with being led by D'Amico Ryans, and now him being in his second year of head coaching experience, and them having Danielle Hunter, a second year of Will Anderson, which he's going to only be better, right? And other great pieces on this defense. I think, and honestly, I think this defense is going to improve. I would definitely keep an eye out on the Texans potentially making additions. They're linked to, a 4-time Pro Bowl or one-time Pro Bowl, one-time All-Pro like Xavier Howard. They've been linked to Justin Simmons from the Denver Broncos as well, who's a Pro Bowler. So those are two guys who you could see the Texans potentially make a push for. So this defense might get better. They might make additions before the regular season starts. So this defense, in my opinion, is going to be better with Will Anderson going into year 2 and then bringing in Danielle Hunter and other pieces getting added to this defense. So I look at outside of the New York, just in the AFC, we're not talking about the NFL. We're not talking about the NFC as well. Just in the AFC, outside the Baltimore Ravens and the New York Jets, I believe the Texans have the best defense in the AFC. And honestly, I think they have the best offense in the AFC. I think to say they have the best quarterback in the AFC would be wrong, because I think you can make the argument that, I think you can make the argument that there are a couple quarterbacks that are probably better than C.J. Stroud right now, like Patrick Mahomes, and you could probably make the argument for Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. Who else? You could probably make the argument for Joe Burrow as well. But I think out of all those guys that I just mentioned, I think the guy that has the best offense and the best supporting cast around him and the best receiver core, and just the whole offense in general is C.J. Stroud, in my opinion. And I don't think C.J. Stroud is very far off from the quarterbacks that I mentioned that you could say are better than him right now. And the only reason you would potentially say those outside of Patrick Mahomes, outside of Patrick Mahomes, the only guy I think you could say, the reason why, you could say Patrick Mahomes is better, of course, because he's one of the best quarterbacks of all time. He's reached that level, 3 Super Bowl championships, 4 Super Bowl appearances. He's starting to reach Tom Brady level, Joe Montana level, is how good Mahomes has been. So I think whatever C.J. Stroud does in his career, he's not going to reach Mahomes. But all the other quarterbacks I mentioned, like Josh Allen and Joe Burrow and even Lamar Jackson, the only reason you'd say the only reason you say C.J. Stroud is not better than those quarterbacks right now is because C.J. Stroud is still really young, and those quarterbacks have proved a lot in the National Football League. So, but I think the Texans are going to be the best team in the AFC. I really do believe the Houston Texans will have the best record in the AFC. I'm not going to go ahead and say the Texans are going to make it to the Super Bowl. I really believe this is the Texans' year to make it to the Super Bowl, but I think it's going to be hard facing teams like the Bengals and the Kansas City Chiefs. But what I am saying is that the Houston Texans will be the best team in the best team in the AFC this season in the regular season, but I think they can. I think they can convert that to the postseason. If the Texans can get the 1 seed, which would be huge for them, which I believe is possible if you can win some of the harder matchups. Texans do have a little bit of an easy schedule, but there are some definitely hard matchups. You got some matchups against like the Cowboys, the Lions, the Jets, the Chiefs, the Ravens. So you do have your hard matchups, but at the same time, the Texans do have their fair share of easy matchups as well. But the Texans can take care of the harder opponents, or most of the harder opponents. I believe the Texans will be one of the best teams in the AFC. Definitely win the AFC South. If the Texans could win the AFC, that'd be huge for the Texans, in my opinion. Because if you can win the AFC, that's avoiding having to go and play in a place like Baltimore, or like the Texans lost in the postseason last year, or Kansas City, or Cincinnati. So I think the Texans have a better chance in the playoffs win at home. I don't know if a young Houston Texans team can go to Kansas City and get a playoff win in January or in January or February. But I will say this, that I believe the Texans could take down anybody in the AFC at NRG Stadium. So I think that the Texans have a good shot this year. They need to take care of the hard opponents, and if they can do that, I believe they will have. I think they'll probably have the most wins they've ever had in a franchise. I think there is a good solid chance that Houston Texans could grab 13 wins this year and go 13-4, which would be the most wins in a single season for a franchise. The most wins they've ever had in a season is 12, going 12-4. So that'd be big for the Texans. Let me know your thoughts on the Houston Texans being the best team in the AFC in the comment section, and peace out.